What up? It's Ilya, and I got the light, I got the mic, and we're going to talk about some more quotes. Let me actually move it over here so I can see it better. So today, just get started. Carl Jung on fear. The spirit of evil is negotiation of the life force by fear. Only boldness can deliver us from fear. And if the risk is not taken, the meaning of life is violated. So take risks. Only boldness can deliver us from fear. I mean, yeah, act boldly, right? Like if you're scared, do it anyway. Unless it's jumping out of a building or something. Although maybe you want to do that also. You know, I'm actually scared of something. I'm scared that this mic is totally going to fall because I'm using this like shitty holder that I got on Lazada for like $2 or $1. And I'm like, it's like barely balancing on it. And every now and then it like just goes down. So if you notice the mic like going, then yeah, the mic stand is impotent and I need to buy a new one. So Carl Jung, that's a summons and accountability to show up as best we can in the face of circumstances over which we have no control. Okay, I kind of see what he's saying. So he's saying like, even though you have no control over your circumstances, you still need to have boldness and just take the risk anyway. Because otherwise, what's the meaning of life if you're just going to cower in fear? This actually reminds me of the Man in the Arena, one of my favorite quotes ever. I'm surprised I don't have it on here, actually, by Theodore Roosevelt. It's this long quote. Look it up. And basically, he's talking about how, like, the glory goes to, yeah, I got the nicotine pouches again. That's why I'm spitting. The glory goes to those in the arena that are marred by mud and blood and that are fighting and that are occasionally losing and that are risking it all to be in the arena to try stuff. Okay, this is, to be fair, this is a super trite quote that's often repeated by VC tech bros on Twitter that are like, look at me, I'm in the arena losing other people's money. And it's like, all right, cool, dude. But in reality, Theodore Roosevelt says that the glory goes to those that are in the arena versus those on the sidelines that are criticizing and judging and saying, oh, I would have done that better. It's like, okay, cool, then you try it. Like, why are you criticizing somebody else for trying stuff and failing? Why don't you just go try? The Theodore Roosevelt says that the glory doesn't go to those people, not to the critics or the haters. It goes to the people that are actually in the arena trying stuff. Love that quote. I should probably do like an actual video on it, but I'm just like repeating it here. Next quote, Marcus Aurelius. Oh man, you know, it's like 3 p.m. today. I've been feeling super, super tired lately. I'm not sure why. I went on this hike in the Philippines and it was like way tougher than I thought it was going to be. My friend was like, yeah, it's super easy. It's just like, because he's like a professional hiker. So he's like, it's going to be super easy. It was not easy at all. So first of all, I went in running shoes. I did not go in my hiking boots, which I forgot here. So I'm like in running shoes, which if you know anything about running shoes, they have no traction whatsoever. They're super smooth. So imagine me at 2 a.m. in the dark, it's raining, I have a headlamp on, and I'm like scrambling up these giant boulders. Not like where you need special gear to like climb up the boulders, but just like I'm like scrambling up these boulders. I'm slipping on the wet rocks and the mud, and I'm like, we're going up this giant mountain. So it's like an all-day hike, and then you sleep in like this tent, and then you wake up at 2 a.m. and you hike to the top of the mountain. So that was super tough, way harder. And by the way, the journey down was like way harder than going up, because going up you're like kind of like using your muscles a lot, but going down it's hitting your joints super hard and you're trying to use your stabilizer muscles. And for me, I'm like stepping in mud and instantly slipping. So thank God I had these like hiking poles where I was like balancing myself with the poles, so my arms were sore, my legs were sore. It was wild. Like my joints were messed up for like 2 days after that. So now I'm like, and then I got sick after that too, because you know, I always tell people, when you go to a new country, if you want to avoid the shits, if you want to avoid pooping water for like a week, what you need to do is eat at franchise restaurants. Like eat at McDonald's, eat at Starbucks, because generally they will filter their water and they will have best practices in place in terms of preventing bacteria in your food. And it's funny because like I was in a hotel in Kuala Lumpur it was Jakarta. It was in Indonesia, and it was like a hotel where you can look down. And I was looking at the restaurants down there. They had these giant water basins, and I was like, damn, that water is totally has a ton of bacteria in it. And I guarantee you they're using that water and just pouring it out of the basin. It's an open basin. There's like flies in it and stuff, and they're just using that as the water for the restaurant. I'm like, for sure, that water is being poured into cups and handed to people when they sit down at the restaurant. So it's like, try to eat at franchise restaurants. That actually reminds me of another rant that I wanted to go on, which was that like, companies back in the day, food companies specifically, for example, Hershey's, it was one of the first companies that actually created a factory to produce food that wasn't going to kill you. So really, if you think about food companies back in the day, they were actually like technology companies because they would. It was a factory where you could put in eggs and flour and other foods that generally would not be shelf stable or wouldn't last a long time, like milk and eggs and things like that. And it would, out the other end of the factory would come food that was processed and packaged and wouldn't kill you. And it was pretty much guaranteed not to kill you. And that's the reason why a lot of brands took off. Because imagine like back in the day, if you're going to buy milk or let's say cereal or something, this is why like Post cereals became this big brand also. If you're buying food for your kid, the number one priority is that the food doesn't kill you and doesn't kill your kid or make them sick. And so the reason brands became so popular was because, specifically food brands, was because mothers had assurances that this food wouldn't kill their kids. And so now when I see like people buying raw milk and people kind of like reverting back to the old ways of doing things, part of me thinks it's cool because it's like, hey man, let's leave out all these like questionable ingredients that maybe were cleared by the FDA, but they aren't clear in Europe. Like there's that whole stat about how like there's way more food additives that are okay in the US and way less in Europe. And people are like, that's why people are fatter in the US. I mean, that's a huge complex issue I'm not going to get into. But the point is people are like, all processed food is bad. And I'm like, really? Food processing was originally like homogenized milk. It was created to prevent bacteria from growing in the milk, I think. You can fact check me on that, actually. I'm not sure about that. But the point is that like some food processing is good because it makes food a lot safer. And if you've ever traveled to a third world country, you are grateful to eat processed food because you're like, this actually isn't going to make me sick. This isn't street food that and by the way, I love street food. But again, that's after your microbiome has gotten adjusted to all the different new bacteria that you're intaking. So like, yeah, try to like eat processed food. I know that sounds weird, but try to eat that when you travel somewhere, especially if you really don't want to get sick. So for me, I was like basically like pissing out of my ass for like a week straight. And then I was like, okay, this is fucked up. And I searched I consulted my doctor, ChatGPT, and it was like, actually I used Grok. And it was like, oh, you probably have a bacteria because after a couple days, if it doesn't get better, plus if you have a fever, you probably have like something like some E. coli or something that happened. So it recommended I get an antibiotic, which I did, and within like 2 days I was fine. So how did I get on this rant anyway? I don't I went on a crazy hike. Oh, right. I was saying I was super tired. So I went on a crazy hike, and man, I have this like frenetic energy today. I have a lot of energy. It's weird. But I went on a hike, and then I was just looking at the camera, and there's like something waving in the background there. It's just the wind on my balcony. Went on a crazy hike, got sick after that, and so now I'm still like kind of recovering from that. So I think that's why I'm like super tired lately. But okay. Next one, Marcus Aurelius. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, okay, this is a good one. This is like, let's say you're in traffic in the morning and you're like just frustrated at like the way the world works. You're like, why do I have to wait in traffic? Why is everyone always cutting me off? Then when you get to let's say you work in an office job, you get to the office, you have to be on the phone, and people are just super rude to you on the phone, and like your boss is giving you heat, and you're like, man, why does everything have to be so hard? Why are all these people against me? Why are all these problems in my life? Marcus Aurelius has the answer for you, right? When you wake up in the morning, and by the way, I think this is from Meditations, which was his personal diary that he kept 2,000 years ago as the most powerful human literally in the world. I think he was the emperor of Rome. And he was, okay, fact check me on that. I could be wrong. I might be making this up. But he basically was like keeping this personal diary. That's why the book Meditations is so good, by the way, because he was keeping a diary. I keep looking over here, but I should be looking over here at the camera. He kept the personal diary, which it was not intended to be shared with anybody. I mean, you could argue like, well, in the back of his head, he probably did think that people would read it eventually, but it wasn't meant for publication. It was him just like telling himself like, things like, yeah, like don't treat your slaves badly. They don't deserve to be treated badly. It was like stuff like that. Or he's like, I don't feel like waking up today. Here's why I should wake up anyway. So it's kind of interesting to read it. But basically, He says, wait, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. What is surly? Is that even a word? They're like this because they can't tell good from evil. So the people that are annoying you and you're like, how could this person be so inconsiderate? They can't tell the difference. If they could, if they were discerning, if they were, I'm not going to say smart, but if they were more self-aware, that they would know. Like, I have this problem. Sometimes when I'm traveling around Southeast Asia, there's a certain types of people that will have absolutely zero self-awareness of personal space. So like they'll walk into the elevator and they'll stand directly behind you on their phone and you have to like move out of their way. You're like, you're literally pressing your back against me. There's nobody else in this elevator. Or they'll take up, when they're walking together in groups, have you ever had this? They will take up the entire hallway and you're like trying to get around them and they're like, like, why? You're like, let me pass, come on. So now I have this habit where I'm like, excuse me. And I just like kind of like push people to the side because even if I say excuse me, they just don't hear me. So certain people are like that. And it's okay because they can't tell good from evil. They can't tell that they're being super annoying. Or even if they can, they just don't realize it. And but you can there's some condolence here. You say, I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil. And I have recognized, so this is a continuation of the quote, I recognize that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. This person is exactly like me, not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. So they're still a human being. They're still part of the miracle of life. And so none of them can hurt me because they are me. We're the same. No one can implicate me in ugliness. No one can implicate me in ugliness. If this person's doing something to me, they can't make me feel bad. I'm making myself feel bad. I'm doing this to myself. If I'm frustrated at somebody's actions, I'm the one that's doing the frustration to myself. They're not doing anything. They're just being themselves. No one can implicate me in ugliness or frustration or any negative emotion I feel. Nobody. Nor can I feel angry at my relative or hate him. You can't hate the person. You can't, because they're your relative and also they don't know. And also you're the one that's causing yourself to feel bad because of their actions. Now, obviously, if there's a caveat to this in my mind where it's like if someone directly hurts you, obviously that's different. But if someone's just being annoying, it's like, just let them be annoying. They're your brother, they're your sister. And also you're the one that's causing yourself to feel bad about this. We were born, okay, continuation of the quote. I'm like inputting my own thoughts into this, so I want to be clear. We were born to work together like feet, hands and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. I mean, we're on this earth together, dude. Like you and this person may be helping each other in indirect ways. Maybe they own a business that's selling you stuff at a good price. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger, yeah, that's what I want to tell people on the elevator, right? To obstruct me is unnatural. Get the hell out of the way. No, to feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are unnatural. So by you actually like responding to their actions and being frustrated by them is unnatural. You shouldn't do that. Well, I'm not going to morally say you shouldn't do it, but it's unnatural for you to do that because guess what? You're bros. We're all bros out here, man. So just be okay with that. Be cool with like them just being annoying and being like, all right, that's just them doing their thing. I get to choose how I respond to this. I'm not going to be annoyed at this. I'm just going to see them as like, it's like the whole thing where it's like, if somebody's ahead of you in traffic and they're going super slow, or they're like just being crazy, you could be like, God, this person's so stupid. Or you could be like, oh, they're like speeding because they need to get to the hospital because their kid's there or whatever, right? You can reframe it in your mind and that way you're not upset. And by the way, you're in full control of that. So Viktor Frankl, he was a Holocaust survivor. And he said that there's a gap between when something happens and when you react to it. And it's in that gap before you... First of all, you have to be aware that you are the one doing the reacting. And second of all, if you notice that gap, you can extend it a little bit. Like let's say someone does something super annoying, like they're standing in the elevator right in front of you on their phone, and you're just like, I want to kill this person. And then you're like, wait, hold up. Let me notice that I'm reacting this way and let me just delay it a little bit. I can react later. I can be annoyed later, but here, let me sit in this place. This is just my interpretation of his quote, but like, let me sit in this place that's like, in between that action and me reacting to it, and let me just like not react to it just for a little bit and just try to extend that as much as possible. Okay, moving on. And by the way, The Man's Search for Meaning is a book by Viktor Frankl. You should totally read it. It will give you some perspective. It will give you a ton of perspective. You're going to be like, damn, I have no problems. Like all of your problems will melt away when you read that book. You're like, I literally have zero problems. Like my problems are not real. Like, yeah, it's some real shit. Okay. When someone defends a person you don't like, here's a good quote you can say. If somebody's defending somebody that you don't like, you're like, well, that person's actually okay. And you know that that person's not okay, or you don't like that person, you could say this. You could say, you know, man, you having an unnatural allegiance to losers is unbecoming of you. Now you can replace losers with any word you want. Like you having an unnatural allegiance to annoying people is unbecoming of you. I think that's such a banger quote. I've never used it in person, but I want to remember it, so maybe I'll use that next time. All right. There is no answer greater than silence and no punishment greater than forgiveness. There's no answer greater than silence. You're like DMing some girls that don't respond. You're like, damn it, just say something. And no punishment, left on red. You're like, all right. And no punishment greater than forgiveness. You know what? That actually reminds me of a Hoodville quote where he's like, if you DM a girl and she says, I have a boyfriend, just remember, loyal girls don't respond at all. So shoot your shot. That's a joke, obviously. There's no answer greater than silence and no punishment greater than forgiveness. I don't have an attribution for this quote, but it's still a banger, so I want to include it in here. No answer greater than silence. I mean, silence is the ultimate answer, so I guess that's right. It just says it all, right? And no punishment greater than forgiveness. I like that quote. I like that because sometimes when somebody hurts you, you feel this desperate need to punish them somehow. Well, they think they can do this to me. Well, watch what I'm going to do to them. Then they will know. But look, actually, forgiving somebody can be an even greater punishment, because by you not returning hate and you not swinging the pendulum back to them, but you just accepting what they've done and just moving on, and even forgiving them, man, I can tell you a wild story. I don't know if I should tell it actually, but a long time ago, I was dating somebody, and they actually, so they broke up with me. They left me. I mean, it was kind of like crumbling anyway, but they left me right at the lowest point in my business, where my business was failing. And I remember just being so like crazy stressed out. Business is failing, everything is going down. It was during COVID, so it was like with my business where we go into people's houses, nobody wanted us to come. And so every week I'm just seeing more and more customers cancel, and I'm just like, what am I going to do? Like, my baby is dying. Not really, but you know what I mean. That if you ever had a business like that that's supporting you and supporting your lifestyle, and maybe you have dependents, then you know how that feels, where you're like, oh my God, everything is going down. And it was going down so fast. It was such a dramatic, like, cancellations every day, like 10 new cancellations. I'm like, oh God. And it was right at that time that person actually chose to leave me. And, I remember thinking, like, I had thoughts like, I would wake up in the middle of the night. I'd be like, how could they do this? Like, after everything we've done for each other, after the connection we built over years, like, how could they leave me at the moment where you could say I needed them most? And, that hurt for a while, because I kept being like, how could they do this? How could they do this to me? I had a lot of resentment, and I didn't really want, but I kind of wanted to punish them. I'm like, how could you do this to me? I thought you had my back. I thought you were my ride or die. But over time, what I found was that all of the stuff that I tried to do, nothing worked to heal that, like, pain inside. I don't want to be dramatic and stuff about this, but, like, it really kind of hurt for a while. I kind of developed, like, trust issues where I was like, nobody has my back. Nobody's ever going to be my ride or die, which later I found to be wrong. But, like, at the time, that's how I felt. And I wonder if you've ever felt this way, where you're like, I can't ever trust anybody. Nobody has my back. People will leave me at the moment that is most convenient for them, even if it's the worst possible moment where I need them most. And not to be overly dramatic, but that's how it felt at the time. And I remember that I read a book or something, and it talked about forgiveness. And I thought, you know what? Is there anyone I need to forgive? And I realized I needed to forgive this person. And what's weird is I actually reached out to this person, and I told them I forgive them. and they were having a really hard time at the moment. This was like this was like a year later. I reached out to them and I actually helped them. Not in a way to get something from them, because we were in different countries. There's no way I could meet up with them or anything. But like, I just helped them through something. And you know what the weird thing is? It's when I forgave them and told them that and actually helped them, that's when it finally healed. That was what healed me, was actually reaching out to the person that hurt me the most and helping them and forgiving them. So this is quite actually a good quote, because you think you want to punish the person that did something bad to you, but maybe just as a thought exercise, consider how you would feel forgiving them. You don't have to tell them this. If they did something unspeakable or horrible to you, perhaps you don't want to tell them, but just in your mind, because you have this cancer that's inside you, this resentment that's inside you. It's like it's like that quote where it's like being angry at somebody else is like having poison, holding poison in your body and hoping they will get hurt, you know? And so like, no punishment greater than forgiveness. Maybe that is the entry point for people that wish that they could punish somebody, to consider that perhaps forgiveness could be an option, which hopefully then will cause them to internally forgive this person, even if externally they're like, what they did was unforgivable, but internally to ease the suffering and the resentment and the pain, and to forgive them in their soul, because perhaps that is the only way they can truly heal. And perhaps that is the best revenge. That is great. The best punishment is for you not to hold this inside you and not to be hurt by it, and to move forward and meet people in the future without all this baggage that you're holding, right? And not to make other people help to hold your baggage. Oh, I got hurt when I was younger and this stuff happened to me, and so that's why I have trust issues and that's why I have all this trauma. It's like, maybe forgiveness is one of the ways that you can just let go, just fully let go. And at least that's what worked for me, so I hope it helps. Yeah, maybe we'll end there. I think that was a pretty poignant, am I saying that word right? Poignant? P-O-I-G, fuck it, I can't even spell it. Anyway, guys, hope this helped. Talk to you later. Peace.